said she may try to join us via Zoom, and Samantha and is attending via Zoom per usual, so that's good. So we know that part's working. Whoop. Oh, there she is. Oh, well, we'll put this on pause because we have Allison walking in, and since the select board liaison is first on the agenda, that's where we'll start. I will just acknowledge that when I started on the Conservation Commission, I made it pretty clear in a nice way that I'm not particularly good at notes and chairing a meeting simultaneous. And so I know Barb wasn't able to attend the last one, and I kind of I'm leaving it sort of to the secretary and or others to pick up. So however that all comes, however that all comes together, or if I need to circle back and kind of get some bullet point meeting minutes for last month, excuse me, then we'll.
I would strongly suggest I don't know if anyone's tried this before, but there is an AI companion running on Zoom stream, and you can get a meeting summary from that. And so I wonder if we should give that a chance to see if that
might be effective.
Yeah, I'm happy to try to access it. Maybe it's only accessible to the host. I don't know.
I can work on that.
It's the little star that's blinking in the upper left corner of the Zoom screen.
Yeah, I do that for the Pathways Committee sometimes, and it's been pretty good.
Okay, that's good information. It's something I wouldn't be looking for personally because it's
awesome.
but that would be helpful in general to know that that's an option for regrouping and checking in on minutes. So since there are, I guess there are some there's a draft I haven't seen yet. We'll revisit that the next meeting and accept those minutes at that point in time. So that being said, do we want to agree to review the AI, or do you want to look at the AI and check on the minutes for this meeting for next month? Since Barb hasn't joined us, I just want to acknowledge that that will be my role.
So
Let's just table it
to order.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So we will call the meeting to order at 12:36 on November 6, 2024. So town updates, the select board liaison, I think the biggest one we're curious about, although it's under current projects, is where the situation is with the pesticide amendment. Do we know yet?
Oh, yeah. Everything passed.
Everything
So,
passed?
yep.
Okay, so it goes.
And I don't know if you want me to do this now, or I have to actually pull up the agenda, but I had an interesting conversation with Evan Frace, who owns, I'm forgetting the name.
He owns the
he does organic
company,
pesticide treatments, and he's really knowledgeable and had a few concerns. And I personally think it's something that we're going to want to look at. And maybe the Conservation Commission can weigh in. Overall, the ordinance groups the application of organic pesticides into the exact same bundle. And doesn't treat them any differently because he is a licensed pesticide applicator. He only uses this cedar-based, has a few different things in it, but he was telling me that he already has to check a registry, basically, of anybody can sign up with the state to be notified if pesticides are going to be applied within, I think it's 500 feet.
Parameter, yeah.
And so he said how, there aren't that many people that do it, but there are definitely some. And so every time he has a client, he goes and he checks this database, and then it gives him the contact information of the person, and he makes phone calls is what normally happens. And so he was kind of feeling like that is already, this thing that the state is doing is already serving that purpose, which I thought was a good point. And I don't know how widely known that is. Probably not all that widely known because not very many people are using it. So that was one thing. And he was pretty gentle about not wanting to necessarily advocate that he should be treated any differently than anybody else. I thought he would be, if he's available at some point, a really interesting speaker for us to have, just to kind of hear about his experiences. He said that part of his company started out as he was providing like consulting to people that wanted to rethink what they were doing on their lawn and encouraging people to move to less, active management styles. Or he was much more eloquent than I am in saying this, but he said that part hadn't really taken off, and he's just focusing. He works in, I think he said he has clients in 9 different towns, and it's really not possible for him to monitor the select board agendas of every one of those towns. In particular, he was worried that the cost of doing business in Camden was gonna go up a lot for him because of this. And in particular, and I didn't realize that this was the case, is the placing of signs every 50 feet, which I know when we were discussing it at the select board level, in my mind, we were talking about road frontage. And, he has all these clients that have massive parcels of land, and going around the entire perimeter of a 20-acre parcel with, signs every 50 feet is absurd. And I was like, oh no, I don't think that's what you have to do. And I was wrong. I think, like anything, there may be some unintended consequences here. Amendments to ordinances are not difficult, really. It would just mean voting on them again. And I'm sure there are more things that I have not factored in, that I'm not even thinking of now. But ultimately, I think the goal of this has always been education and collecting, more information. And it might be good to have the Conservation Commission sort of invite some people in, like Evan, to just learn a little bit more about what might be blind spots. And then I think maybe consider whether there are models where exempting certain categories. And so, like, I'm sure you've thought of that. And is the state registry enough? If basically, I think it's something that needs to be talked about by a group of people that are thinking about it and knowledgeable. Otherwise, it's going to just be batted around by, the individual select board members trying to be like, oh gosh, that sounds good or bad. And it might be good for the Conservation Commission to take it up.
Yeah, I'm happy to, if you want to give me his contact information, invite him to the December meeting or January meeting to see if he's available. Certainly would be seemingly a slightly less busy time of year for him. And the sooner we do it, the more information we have, the more opportunity we have to tweak and get it on a sooner than later ballot. Otherwise, because it will impact one way or another the pesticide applicators in Camden imminently. Like going for next season, certainly. So
yeah, I mean, and for him, like the notification part, he does all of his business on his phone, so he's not mailing out anything to people as part of his business. And so, for some businesses where that's already a real part of things, it's not that big of a deal. These engineering companies that are used to the notification requirements and all of that. But I definitely felt sympathetic and also just interested. And he had he has lots of experience working with people in Camden and elsewhere that are trying to do the right thing. So
What's his name again?
Evan Frace. I need to look up the name of his.
If he does organic pesticide application too. We want to encourage these relationships, not discourage them, right? Because they're,
I also think it's important to recognize that both organic and inorganic are chemical compounds.
yeah, no, I agree.
They are regulated, they are pesticides,
Yep,
and they all need to be treated.
And he actually said that. He said, you have to, because I was like, oh, well, it's organic. And he was like, well, you have to remember this, it does have to be taken seriously because it does kill things.
Right.
And
Right.
I really enjoyed the conversation with him because I learned a bunch of things. And I think that getting information out about the option to be notified by the state too sounds good. And it just seemed worth more of a conversation.
Evan or Evan?
So it's
think it's-
Evan Frace,
Evan.
EVAN, and then Frace is FRACE.
Oh.
And his company is called Greener Grounds Tick Control. And I don't know if I talked to Jeremy about this a little too, and he was like, yeah, let's try to
Yeah.
work with him and figure out how we can.
Yeah, we should
'Cause
ask Jeremy to attend if he can as well, just to see if we can get the more people in the conversation and the understanding of the nuances and complexities is good.
Yeah, and maybe some of the Joanne, what's her last name?
Wilson.
Yes. I asked Evan if he had talked to her at
I
all.
talked to her myself probably a month ago. She was all involved in the Paris Olympics because she's in the dressage thing and everything. So at the time she was like preoccupied, but she's definitely worth. I told
yeah.
her we'd love to have her come to a meeting and.
So maybe we could try to have everybody come to that meeting and,
Okay, yeah. you
Yeah,
should
I think
invite
so. She was not, it was kind of like, seemed surprised. Like, oh yeah, that'd be great. And it's like, yeah, well, of course, it'd be great. She's a terrific resource. So
Yeah, I
she
mean, the
lives
idea
right
is
up, she lives a few houses from me, so she's easy. I mean, I can be the point person with her if you guys want me to do that.
Sure. Cool. Good.
I watched her presentation at the select board meeting. She did a really good job. I think you.
I thought so too. And it was so,
Situation.
then that's when Tom Hedstrom was like, well, let's just get something on the ballot. And which wasn't even really what she was trying to
Right.
push for. I do think sometimes just moving forward and then it's not, but recognizing that it's not going to be perfect. But we can't stop now. It's unfortunate the way our system works. It is very arduous and the select board can't just change something when you realize you didn't quite get it right. But I think that, if we were to look at it a little bit and make some recommendations that everybody agreed on, it wouldn't be hard to get that changed. And
Sounds good. Any other updates from the select board? Anything on the horizon we should be aware of? Or
I mean, just that the McGonagall River Citizens Advisory Committee, they had a couple public input meetings at the middle school. And
Display at the library.
do they have a display at the library?
the current one, or they've had one?
Well, it was there yesterday.
Okay, we're gonna call that current.
Oh, that's great.
And they had, I think, at least one person from that committee there to answer questions. It was a woman. I didn't get her name.
Oh, did they show
It's just three. We're
designs?
talking, yeah, 3 designs,
I'm
Oh,
gonna
that's
go
great.
over.
about this big each one.
They must have taken those over from the thing. Because they did show some designs at the middle school in the part where you can talk. There was a portion where you could talk afterwards and kind of walk around. But I didn't actually know if there was anywhere that people could see them.
What specifically are the designs for, like where and what?
It's a little
Like-
Montgomery Dam.
explanation.
So they kind of just explained why they're since Montgomery Dam, the decisions that we make there have such an impact on what's possible or not possible, especially funding wise throughout the rest of the watershed. They kind of gave an overview of why they're focusing on that one first, also because it's, the only one that's being looked at or considered for removal that's town owned. The next two upstream are privately owned. So it's, fine for us all to study that, and they'll be likely providing recommendations on those dams, but the decision rests with the private
They also
owners.
show different, well, it shows from the waterfall past the American Boathouse,
Mhm.
what the different options are. So it's kind of two issues. It's the dam, and then there's whatever they're going to do for the shoreline.
Yeah, and so, NOAA, really, the funding agency, would really like to see that issue treated holistically because it all does connect. And so the reason that the Harbor Park portion is being shown in those designs is that, especially for the dam removal design, the original path of the river is through a portion of Harbor Park that is flooding on a regular basis due to sea level rise. So initially there was thought of trying to avoid having any alterations to the dam have any impact on Harbor Park, which seemed like a lovely idea at first, until there was a realization that that whole part that they were trying not to impact is being impacted on a regular basis by sea level rise. It's all, fill. And so so that there's one part of the seawall that's occupies the former channel of the river. And then there's another part of the seawall, which also falls down sometimes. And the library would really like they have a committee of the library trustees that has been looking at this in a really detailed way. I've been really impressed. They looked at this first design where the seawall, and they show that in one of the designs, I think the partial dam removal, they showed what it would look like if you just raise the seawall to make it adjust for sea level rise sort of that way with just a taller wall. And the library came back and said, no, this isn't what we don't think, that somebody called it the Fort Knox look. And in sort of their statement of values, they said they would like to see it increase access to the intertidal zone, be more resilient, be more, nature-like. They see that beach part of Harbor Park, the intertidal zone, as part of Harbor Park and part of what's special about Harbor Park. And so then there's another option that shows a seawall that's kind of a more nature-like sort of stepped hybrid approach. But
Yeah.
well, thanks for letting us know about
Yeah,
those designs being in the library.
Yes.
He's
Thank
right on
you.
top of things. I'm the liaison to the library board and everything, and I didn't know that yet. So yeah, it sounds like go and check that stuff out, because they are, they're taking input, and a lot of the time the only, the input that gets received is from not just the general public. It's the the hyper interested on both sides. And so it's good now would be a good time to look at things and see what you like or don't like. And
Yeah, that's good input.
Excellent. Where is the citizen action group at, the grant funding at there's been a lot of talk and a lot of planning and a lot of ideas. When are we going to perhaps get to the actionable items, place and space, or are we going to spend
the
another
Citizens
year?
Advisory Committee.
But right, you're going to advise. Is there any momentum? Is there any interest? Is there any thought that any of this is going to be more than
talking in circles.
Yep.
Well, I think that a big part of is they have done a lot of input. There have been many opportunities for input over many committees and years. They felt that maybe a missing piece of some of that was sort of big in-person gatherings in an auditorium-like atmosphere where you could ask questions and everybody else would listen to the question and the answer. And so that, that was feedback that they heard. So they did that. They did 2 of them. And now I think also there has been a strong desire to have visuals. And there have been some visuals over the years. But now there are more. And I think some of them are better than have been in the past in terms of more realistically showing different options. There are kind of infinite numbers of options for various parts of it too. So it's now I know they said that they remained committed to providing recommendation and having people vote in June. And I think
Vote on what specifically?
Montgomery Dam. So they're going to be making,
Move it to partially for Plan A, B, or C. Is that what we're voting on? Keep it as is?
they haven't gotten to the point where they haven't worded their recommendation yet. One of the questions was, somebody asked, how do we know? For a lot of people, it will come down to cost. And so I think they want to make sure that they can provide they'll make a recommendation to the select board, and ultimately the select board has control over the wording. But I think from what I've heard so far, there's a desire to present people with a recommendation that is also paired with any kind of funding that would be needed. So one of the things that has happened in other towns is to say, do you support, dam removal, or dam removal would be the most likely one to receive full funding, and then making it, contingent upon, funding, that would pay for the entirety of it, or
3/4 of it, or 80%.
80% of it, or, depending on how the funding environment changes or doesn't change. There have been many projects that have been fully funded by grant funding. And then kind of the further you deviate from what the highest and best recommendation would be in terms of fish passage or flood resilience, it becomes a little less likely. But I think in general, we've been advised in the past not to put things out to voters that's like choose A, B, or C.
That's good.
And there are arguments for and against that, but trying to get it to the point where a bunch of people, a committee, and the select board, whoever else has looked at it and said, this is what we think is the best, do you approve or not approve? So that people can be told, they can know what the consequences of that action or not action would be. So, one thing it's okay just to tell the committee, my input for you is to get on with things. And
I've done that.
there's this feeling like you want to keep looking for input. And at some point, I think a lot of Camden residents may, want a good quality recommendation from people that have looked at it really hard. And there's only so much additional input that's useful from people that haven't looked at it really hard. So, yeah, I think November would have.
2025 is a potential.
What's that?
2025 has a potential for at least some acceptance of a direction to go forward in, or a rejection of a direction to, but get the there's possibility for consensus on a future nearish future actionable item, I guess.
Right. I mean, it was supposed to be November. The thought was that it was going to be, this was going to be a great election to do it. And because the turnout was so high. And, now it's going to be
I
June.
think something like that, has had so much good, bad, and indifferent conversation and is so front and center in the community. I don't, and it's not something that the rest of the state is voting on. I'm confident that we would get a reasonable turnout for a vote that's, a local vote on it, but that's just my
We get pretty good turnout no
observation.
matter
We do.
what.
That's what I say.
Yeah.
I think we have a town that's fairly engaged.
Yeah, it's a
in
pretty
general,
hot
so-
topic. I don't think
Yeah.
we'd have
So
a
I don't-
problem.
It's just that sometimes it's the people that are drawn to the hot topics aren't as representative as, it doesn't, it would be good to vote on something before too long.
Yeah.
I think we all agree
Right.
on that.
Agreed. Okay. Anything else? You're great because we're getting like 2 for 1 with you today. We're getting the projects and the committees all in one. Any other updates from the select board? Any other things on the horizon? No.
I mean, of course, there always are, but
Projects, but, well, as relevant or to the conservation.
I could make
Commission,
almost anything relevant to the Conservation Commission, but nothing is
that's nothing screaming at you at the moment. Okay.
correct,
All
yes.
right. Any?
Our select board meeting
news?
has been canceled
For
for
tonight?
tonight, I believe.
Okay.
And
Fatigue.
it was a really small agenda anyway. And maybe a couple people couldn't make it, and they decided to defer the agenda until the next meeting.
So then, if Dave's not here to sort of speak for Public Works, I would just say that I will state now, and then I'll send out an email to Dave and the rest of the committee or the commission, as well as the handful who have been kind of supporting us as volunteers or other interested residents, that, and Steve echoed this, but he and I are willing to help. I know that Dave may still have some trees left. And if that's the case, I'm happy. And we've got this kind of weather still. So
Yeah, I'm happy
I'm
to help
happy to
too.
go out, and whether it's a half a day or whether he gives us the list or whatever, we can kind of keep working off that list we had. And, even if it's picking up the trees or he just drops them off and we do what we did before and circle around with 2
Yeah,
or
I
3
think
or
if there's
4 of
only a
us.
few trees, digging a
Better to get
hole isn't the
better
end
to
of
get
the
them in the
world.
ground.
What's
Yeah,
that?
better to get them in the ground now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have a list of,
so-
of people interested?
I think they may have planted all the trees.
I think they got them all in? Okay.
know
'cause
they,
he hadn't when we did that.
they
planting day.
planted several in the,
The last week or so,
yes.
couple weeks, okay, all right. So that's the information I need.
Let me see.
Do we know how many total trees were planted this year?
I don't.
I think it was somewhere around 40, but I don't think they have a final count yet.
Okay.
No more trees to plant.
Okay, well, there we go. We did our job. Okay, and then I guess, I feel like, and while you've got him on text message.
He said
Should
that
we be going out and doing like the storm drain testing with the sticks and measuring? I mean, that's kind of stuff that this time of year is great to do. Or should we be helping out clearing some of the basins with the leaves and, those kinds of things? Again, like, I'm happy to take a walk or
Yeah.
focused energy. Steve's great. I'm like, we can channel some energy into those, cleaning some storm drain culvert area.
I think we should we should go, and there are a few
training thing.
places that are just very clearly not correct in the system.
Yep.
Lake Beach being one.
Mhm.
Then I believe Windward Gardens.
Ugh. That's still, that feels like the forever problem.
I don't know, is it?
It's had stormwater issues. I think.
I don't know if they have stormwater issues or just completely unmapped catch basins.
Maybe that's the problem, is they just don't know where any of it's going.
but, you know, Lake Beach is just totally wrong. So I think getting a couple of us to go out, we had some things to change in the app too, and we tried to get a meeting going. And then Samantha was not going to be here, and so I kind of dropped it. But I think if we were to do it would be useful to just have a couple people go out and fix the Lake Beach.
Do we want to pick time or dates sooner than later? Do you want to do it by email so we can get a few others that are not here today or at the moment to be involved as well, or just pick something knowing that 2 or 3 of us could be there and get it on the calendar? And go?
Yeah,
I'm kind of in that like.
works well for me is being prescriptive. Say like, could you go from this street to this street and do the storm drain mapping, right? Whatever that means. And I can do it or we could do it when we're available. In other words, it doesn't have to be a specific time, right? And so if there was a list of things that needed to be done,
Do you feel like you're proficient with the app?
no, I don't. I mean, I feel like I could manage my way around it, but I don't feel like I'm any expert at it,
Then the
no.
first thing we need to do is get back together with you for.
We
Yeah.
could use it as
And
an
one of-
example, right?
Yeah, I'm just trying to make sure that we use everybody's time. Samantha had kind of volunteered to become even more knowledgeable about it and then help with the, with sort of informing everybody else, which is, so maybe,
Did everyone get the summary I sent of our training outing that we did months ago? I sent it to Allison originally, and then eventually I just sent it to everybody, I thought. And I didn't hear back from anybody, so now I'm wondering if I actually sent it or just thought about
no,
sending
you
it.
did, you
Um,
sent it to me. I know
yeah.
you sent it to me.
So I think one of the challenges with sending anybody out or doing another training is there were so many open questions about specifically what and where we are meant to record the information, because there's in the app, there's a couple different places where you could put the same information. And so knowing what the people who are using the app on the other end, where we're supposed to be putting that information and what they do and do not want us changing in those entries, we kind of need that before people can go out and do it, because there were a lot of open questions there.
Yeah, so, right, it was, so Badger right now, we have a different company this year doing the storm drain cleaning. Now, there are a lot of different elements of this. There's the keeping track of which storm drains have been cleaned or not, and ideally measuring the amount of sediment in each of them and all of that. Then, so those are reports that get generated for each of these locations. Then you have the larger just map of the infrastructure that we have that has some of its own issues. So fixing errors in that overall map is kind of one thing and requires one set of skills and one training. And then there's the training that is required just to go out and document, okay, there was 7 inches of sediment in this one and it got cleaned. I know that a Public Works employee, Ken Dahl, I believe, from Public Works, the assistant, I forget what her title is, but she has been going out with Badger as well as an employee from the wastewater department to do that. And maybe there's an opportunity for a couple of us to tag along.
Yeah, it'd be good.
Just for that, for that portion of it, just to kind of see see what they're doing. Because I guess that's been working fine, putting stuff in the app. And let me just see if there's,
It also worked like when we were doing the tree planting to have somebody who was like knowledgeable paired with somebody who needed some training. I don't know if that's possible here,
mhm.
but it might be nice if it's possible. That way you get like a designated person who knows what they're doing, who can like, you know, answer questions.
Yeah,
for
it's like on the job training.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what we really need.
Yeah.
So Dave says it would be possible to go with Kendall.
Yeah, I just saw her out here
That would be
on my way in.
That would be great. And then, but I also feel comfortable in that if I couldn't attend, but Brian could and
Yeah.
Samantha could, or you know, or you were comfortable already, or you did like that. Now we have the possibility of, you know, 2, 4, 6, you know, like we have the possibility of
Right.
doubling up and, you know, so if there's any like measuring or hanging over and looking with, you know, that we've got that sort of safety net of 2 people out on the street, so to speak, or on private, public, quasi property, and, you know, and you've like one's
Yeah, it is a
one's
good idea
recording
to
while the other's
get
looking or doing, yeah.
Yeah.
But I agree.
So it could, because one of the things is, I guess Badger is like $300 an hour or something. And so they're not wanting that person to be putting it all in the app. So they have somebody going around. And until when? Apparently it's happening like right now. He's like, she's in a truck following them around.
Oh, literally right now, not
Yeah,
like this week, like right now.
I
It's-
saw her out
Oh,
there on
That's
my
so
way
funny.
in
Okay, so,
Right.
so
Kind
go
of
run, chase her down. No, I'm
with
just
a truck.
kidding.
Yeah.
So why don't we try, I'll ask Dave to send an email with, or we can, he's just shared Kendall's phone number too, so.
There you go. Which we won't do on the public meeting. We'll share it.
I mean, I think it's probably okay, but,
I guess she's a town employee. Lucky her.
so that's one aspect of it that I think is very much like kind of ready to
Yeah,
go.
no, I think
But
that's
then
where we
the other
wanna-
part that Samantha was saying, that was when we were all trying to go out there and fix multiple things. And I was trying to explain to you guys at the same time, the overall master app plus the inspection app and the way that they interact or don't interact. And everybody was at different levels of understanding and not, we hadn't completely defined our goal. So it got a little convoluted. I think probably, I guess it's going to be a few more weeks of this. So let's try to make that a priority to have a few people to tag along with Kendall at some point. And
So is this an ongoing activity like through the winter, or does it just happen, certain times of the year, or?
it's a once a year
Yeah,
thing.
okay.
And it started a couple weeks ago, or maybe last week, and apparently it's going to go for a few more weeks. Every year, we clean a portion of the system, and I think some of them are cleaned every year. For years and years and years, the town really neglected the just regular maintenance cleanings. And so I think there's something like 700 catch basins in the town or something like that. So it's figuring out which ones should be cleaned on a regular
Prioritize.
basis, what condition they're in, all kinds of stuff.
And I don't want to belabor the issue, but if you got skilled at the app in how to do it, you could go off on your own and do a street or two with a couple of people. in any time, right? I mean,
Ideally, we would get to the point where there could be some kind of reconnaissance work
right.
that would be
exactly.
happening. So the Conservation Commission, much like identifying, tree locations and things
Right.
like that, could be identifying, high priority cleaning locations.
Right.
So the
Um,
point of getting trained, doing the training that we did last time would be like, if we're kind of going around constantly doing this, we're feeding information to people who go around for remediation to be like, this needs some attention.
Right.
Yeah, and
One
we're still
gets
kind of
red, one is
defining.
or yellow, one is
Yeah.
green, like this one's good, this one's
Yeah.
okay, but not great.
That'd
this
be
one's-
very interesting to me
um,
because then
not-
you could go off and do it when you had time available, right?
Right.
And it would be helpful, right? And, it would be the kind of thing where you could take a part of town, some streets, and just go do it. And put the data in the app and be done with it,
Yes,
right? So
exactly.
it's a beginning and an end. It's a little project that we could add value.
Right.
Exactly.
Wouldn't be some huge thing.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
and just to clarify, sorry, also not to belabor, but to clarify, for what Kendall is doing now, you said she does this or this happens once a year. But when we talk about doing it once a year, there are several outings associated with that to go and take
Yeah,
a
there's a
look.
company that's here. This costs
Has to be.
us, I think, $50,000.
Yeah.
And so there's a company that's here for multiple weeks. It's just the company that did it last time is super busy, wasn't available to do it. So they
Yeah.
had to switch companies. The person that was doing it before was less expensive, I believe, and was also just doing the app at the same time.
Yeah.
So it's been kind of just this moving target. It hasn't been it's really been since Dave got here mostly that there's been a more regular schedule of cleaning. And then at the same time, trying to figure out how we can better keep track of all of the infrastructure and figuring out, okay, what's the role of volunteers? What's the role of the app? It's really hard, even when just employees change, figuring out like, oh, right, we set up this app, like we should
Yeah.
use the app again.
Right.
And so it would be very helpful to have more people that are proficient in different aspects of it. Another thing that happens is there'll be like a project that they're doing sometimes, and the like public works department or somebody, and they'll find that, oh, the pipes on the ground are not going to all the places that it says. Can somebody update the app, based on what was just done here, or different things. But it's not all the same. The amount that needs to be learned to do certain aspects of it isn't the same as what it would take to learn other aspects of it. Somebody that's going out and fixing the stuff at Lake Beach, for instance, should know what the difference is between a ditch and a culvert and an outfall and a pipe, and there are some basic things that take a little bit more, but one of them, you can just learn how to measure how much sediment is in there. So I think just kind of figuring out like ideally we would have like a big enough GIS budget that we would be able to pay some people to develop like tutorials for each of these things,
Right.
like designated tasks. And then there's a tutorial so that you can learn how to do this and this and this. But we're relying on a really kind of low budget operation where a few of us become knowledgeable and then kind of guerrilla style try to educate a few more people before we get tired and leave. Yeah.
That's real. All righty. Well.
So inspiring.
All right.
It's real life, right?
Public service.
Well, it sounds like we have direction. We have a basic understanding that there's sort of a tiered approach here, and that you and I, or whoever's available in the next
Yeah, I'm
couple
game.
of weeks
Yeah.
could fold in and
Mhm.
observe, learn,
It would,
as we go with
Kendall.
what's with Kendall. And
Yeah.
what's going on, and then take the next sort of level training or approach or assist with Samantha and maybe the two of you are kind of in your own league or in operating and making the tweaks necessary so that when you're ready, you can just say, we need help with X, Y, and Z, because it's, there's clearly an extra.
Yeah, we were going to meet with, so we now have a
That's
town
fine.
engineer who likes all of this stuff too and is knowledgeable, but he wasn't here when the original apps got developed. And so I know Dave's been working to get him up to speed.
Yep.
And so the plan, which almost happened, was Samantha and Justin and
Yep.
Dave and I were going to kind of meet to make sure everybody's on the same page about, okay, what could be helpful that the Conservation Commission does? What are the things that we identified that need a change in the app? Like all the pictures, like you can't add a picture right now. You go to like add a photo in the field notes thing, and it gives you the option of scanning a barcode, which seems to have just been some kind of a glitch. But really disruptive in terms of using that feature.
Well, that sounds good.
So hopefully Samantha can maybe harass me. I'll send out another email and see if we can do the thing that we were going to do before.
And I also think though, since there are
So-
some of us who are sort of ready to continue doing a little bit of field work, is, you and I and Steve, or it
would be good to-
Sam,
Yeah.
if you're available
I'm
to.
available for sure.
With Kendall.
Well, also the street tree planting, because we know we've
Yeah.
got more locations to identify. And
Yeah, we really
outreach
do
to
need-
We could really literally kind of line up through the winter, especially when we're
Yeah,
not
you
doing
and I
like,
and Pamela.
line
did.
up through the winter months.
Yeah, absolutely.
The planting for spring, and then get the permissions and the timing, and then it's, and it's just kind of
That's a really good point, because
ready to
they're,
go, and we could identify the most appropriate trees,
Yep.
or, I mean, knowing there's a subset, but certainly under wire, this, that, and the other thing.
It's a
Get
good
the
winter activity.
sign off, ask for an email,
Yep.
then say, we'll email you again, May-
yeah, because they had
in
to
May
do,
or something
they ran
along
out of
that.
approved locations.
Yeah,
And
but
Dave did a lot of that.
I feel like if we could
himself.
do that sort of prep
Yeah,
over the winter.
So
that
those
would be-
halos,
It'd be useful.
you can get a bunch of halos in the system.
And he's
Yes.
definitely using it, and we're gaining
and
momentum there.
I'm comfortable with the app. I mean,
So,
Right.
we did that. You, Pamela, and I
Yeah.
walked up Union and.
yep.
Yeah, and the talking to people too part is the really helpful.
Belmont. Remember
thing.
that?
Yeah.
Looked around and
Perfect.
it was fun
All right.
getting outside.
And we'll-
So to go back with the Kindle thing though, how do we make that happen? Is there,
I think you're going to send,
I think that is what they are doing almost all day right now, just to put that out there.
so if
So
we.
is there a time that,
I'm just thinking like, if we go, if I or we go to the town garage at 8:00 in the morning, if Kendall's there, we can talk to her about it, or I don't know, just throwing stuff out there. I don't know.
I'll check on that.
I'm happy to do
I mean,
that.
we could go find them right now if we wanted to for the next hour of our meeting. Or I don't know what else is on the agenda, but I feel like we need to do one more step with Kendall before I encourage people to show up at.
Yes.
before she's like, why are you people here?
Go away, go away. Leave me
Um,
alone.
maybe just make sure that,
Sometimes it's less help and not more help, right?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Well, I think we've
sorry, I'm
covered
getting a call and I was trying
your
not to.
ear and all, yeah. So, is there anything going on with Harbor Committee or other groups that it's kind of feels like
This-
very
so-
quiet, or is there any, I'm just checking in kind of at large. I feel like we've all been saturated with other stuff, and now,
I have a question.
checking back in.
Speaking of the harbor, Joanne and I were out rowing in Sherman's Cove.
Mhm.
And one of the properties that has one of those piers that disappeared, there's a huge excavator out there right on the shore.
Almost always an excavator in Sherman's Cove these days, but yeah,
it just was
it's
like,
jarring, yeah.
what's that? What's going on here? Because we were digging in the intertidal zone, and I mean, it looked like,
They must be, we would hope they must be
well,
permitted
I don't
for
know. I
pure
mean, but I
replacement
just
or
thought
whatever.
I'd bring it up. I don't know. mean,
I actually gave a presentation at the Saco Bay Coastal Conference and about a month ago, and featured some of those photos heavily in terms of just all of the projects that are happening all the time. They're taking up so much permitting time from
Right.
the state agencies that are really, most of them probably don't need to happen at all. And it's really hard to, the monitoring part of it, especially in these places that aren't that accessible to the public. The monitoring of these projects to make sure that they're all, they're not supposed to be, their NERPA application, normally they specify that they're not going to be below the high water mark and all kinds of things like that. But I know I'm always like, that's not true. So I think all of those are,
They're all okay.
is it the one over, is it the one on Harbor, by Harbor
By
Road?
Marine Ave, the end there, or,
Mhm.
yeah, it's where you and I did the invasive plant survey.
Mhm.
Yep. So that's
Yeah, and
fine.
unfortunately, with all the excavators there, my point, and this could be something that the Conservation Commission could say, because the Conservation Commission was involved in getting the public access points to begin with. Since these storms, there's been such a massive amount of work that has happened on all the private properties.
Right.
With, in some cases, really fast-tracked permitting. Our Marine Avenue public access point remains unimproved, it's just still in shambles, and people can't even get down there. And so it makes it hard. I do think it's worth it it's always okay to send an email to the code enforcement officer, or to Jeremy, because Jeremy, the planner, to check in on things. Anybody can request to see the application. A lot of the time what I'll do is I'll ask to see the application, the NERP application for the work that's happening. And it goes through and it tells you what they said they were going to do and why, and what they said they weren't going to do. And that more people really do need to do that.
I'm looking at
I
that.
think it would be really good if we could get I'm glad you brought this up, because if we could say that as a standing rule that any NERPA apps that the town gets notified of should also be sent to the Conservation Commission, that would be a really
I think
good
that'd be good.
thing, because they are notifying people in the notice section of some newspaper somewhere. And there's a process that the town or anybody can provide comments, but most of the time, by the time we notice it, or the average member of the public, it's much too late to have any comment. So just like the Harbor Committee gets to review certain applications, there is a requirement that anytime they do this notice of intent to file, and then a copy of the application has to be sent to the town office. We could just ask, for any of these shoreline modification projects, that it gets sent to us too, so that if we want to provide comments, we could. I've been meaning to bring that up for a really long time, actually.
Yeah, we're just gonna check it out. And,
Right, because there's one that happened in Sherman's Cove that was a brand new seawall on a vacant lot, no structure in danger at all. And if you look through the application, it shows the shoreline with the erosion that needed to be fixed, which is just normal. It's like, this is what a forest looks like when it's next to the ocean. There were some dead trees and of course, dead trees actually provide erosion control.
right.
And so they did all this stuff, and they were able to remove the trees, build a wall, all of this stuff. And there's not even a structure.
It wasn't threatening anything.
Right, and a lot of the time that probably wouldn't have been approved if they had gotten some comments. But they're just so overwhelmed at DEP that, Jeremy told me they're working on, coming up with some better rules about that. I think in general, just, dead trees shouldn't be removed from the riparian zone unless there's a really good reason
Yeah,
for it. This whole conference I went to, they're
Great
talking.
idea to have some sort of public awareness around the NERPA applications. I've in the past been interested in knowing what's going on with them. You have to physically go to the office or email somebody and know to ask for it. Is there any way they could be posted on the town website, or like you said, forwarded immediately and a copy forwarded to the Conservation Commission?
I think we
it's not
definitely.
separate from the specific merits of any particular situation. Just could we be a part of that process?
There's certainly precedence for it. So I've been in Maine for 20 years now. And when I lived in Massachusetts, I served on the Conservation Commission in my local town. And so that was more than 2 decades ago. And it is mandatory in the state of Massachusetts to have all wetlands permits, PBR, and NERPA does, I could go on with the acronyms, Army Corps, any of them are required to not only go by the code enforcement and or planning office, depending on what they have, but they go to the Conservation Commission for review. And then there's public comment in a public meeting, there's review, and they're accepted or denied. And then any wetlands concerns, any site review that needs to be done is handled by the conservation. So there's a core of people, and it's, and then they report back to the code enforcement officer, and there's a chain of command. It's been 20 years, so things could have shifted and twisted, but it is unlikely that it has rolled back significantly. We'll say
Right.
that. So it's, it was sort of surprising to me when I moved to Maine for not pointing fingers at Camden specifically, but in general, sort of some of the lack of oversight that, there's box checking, there's still a process, but there's really a lack of oversight. There's not enough eyes and boots on the ground to
They're letting the towns,
truly know what's happening, and things are being done. Things are being done in a way that doesn't allow for
So
the public
where-
comment or review.
For example, this particular situation, where is the permit for this
In the
project
office across
kept?
the hall.
Is it here in the,
so you can get them from the state or you can get them here.
they online?
No.
They really need a lot more staff. for
But
that.
and if you try to sign up for the public notices, I tried to do that so that I would get them. And it's not easy because you try to put in different search terms so that you
Right.
can be alerted. And
Yeah.
it's funny because Gartley and Dorsey's offices are in Camden. So I haven't been able to figure out a way to not get notified for every single Gartley and Dorsey project in the state of Maine by putting in Camden as the, but I think it would be technically the reason that they're required to have the applications filed with the town office is so that the towns can make people aware. Unfortunately, that effort has been very passive. So I don't anticipate any resistance. If the Conservation Commission were just to write a letter to the
Select
code,
board or to Jeremy or something.
just requesting that, however we want to word it, you could probably come up with that wording easily, Rebecca. Certainly the NERPA stuff and, anything else that the Conservation Commission be just forwarded a copy of the application. And that doesn't mean that, we're going to try to stop every project or anything like that. It's just like the whole point is for them to open up public comment, and then they determine based on that whether they're going to hold a hearing or not.
It's also an opportunity to see trends or areas of concern or, does there continue to be a lot of requests for hardening of the shoreline, just as a simple example in the conversation, versus a living shoreline?
It's
or,
educational, too.
Yeah, I mean, it just gives us an
Oh, that's
a
really
point
interesting to
of-
read them.
Yeah, I mean, when somebody does a project like this, aren't you supposed to put a sign that says DEP application number, blah, blah, blah? I usually see stuff like that. I would assume there'd be something at a job site identifying
Right, like the way we do building permits are usually on the
Well,
window of
yeah, I
the.
mean, like when I was over in Western Maine, we did shoreline zoning stuff. There'd be a Department of Environmental Protection, a DEP, and there'd be a number so that you could go look it up, and it was right there. Everybody could see it. But I guess that's not what happens.
I mean, if that is a requirement, it's not.
I'm gonna go check this out, where this situation is, and just myself and see what's going on. I'm not gonna do anything or say anything. I'm just gonna look, see where it is, try to get a better sense of what's going on. It looked really invasive. I mean, they were digging huge holes right in the intertidal area. Now, that would be where the high water mark would go to in below, not above, right?
Right, and it's mean high water based on the title datum
Right.
from, it's like 18 years ago at this point. So it's, I
don't want to be a pain, but it would be good to learn more about the process.
and what they'll say is, oh, well, all the contractors have to be certified. And because a woman asked this at this shoreline conference that I went to, and she was like, who's monitoring all this? And the woman from the DEP was like, well, that's, once we do the permitting, it's not really us. It's really relies on the contractor, the contractors are certified, and then it's your
Right.
local code enforcement officer. And, the whole room was like, oh, great, great. That's not.
Makes me feel real good.
wasn't convincing.
Enough said.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it becomes a slippery slope, I think. at
Right,
this point, but-
there's the merits of the project overall, and then there's the way the project is being undertaken.
Right.
A lot of the time, I'm so upset that the project is happening at all that I have given up by the time of, overall, the only thing that they can really do wrong is not doing the erosion control very well during the project. But in most cases, the project itself is going to completely stop all erosion for the foreseeable future, even the good sort of natural amount of erosion. So I tend to think, oh, well, that's the last little bit of sand that Sherman's Cove is going to get. So it's depressing over there. But it's like there's always at least one excavator. And there's also the thing about the piers that you're supposed to be able to get underneath the piers. Because we combat, we stopped the new piers for the most part are going to be heavily regulated now, but there's still this whole part about the walls. And the more walls we have, the less public access you end up getting, because the shoreline can no longer move inward. I still think it would be a really good exercise for us to try to just spend some time walking the shoreline of Camden. I think we were going to do that at one
Yeah,
point.
that'd be great.
Again, another thing to throw out, I think that's sort of brings us into the other, was sort of outreach and looking ahead for projects and needs, and circling back on things that were started and not finished, and maybe not adding too much. This is a me thing, from somebody who has typically too much on her plate, is can we channel what energy and time we have, and gain ground on some of these existing needs and projects.
Okay.
I need to leave by 2, just.
Yeah, we all have moving parts. Did you have to leave early too, or you had to leave, or somebody else?
I do need to go.
Yes,
Sorry.
I knew there was somebody in here.
She's back.
So that's totally understandable. I think there'll be another email with some suggested dates and times, and we can
You're back.
pick it.
Okay, and
based on
Alice and
project.
I did a reply all on the GIS email with David and the engineer. So hopefully we can move forward on that again.
Perfect, thanks.
All right,
Bye.
much appreciated. Thanks, Samantha.
Hi, Samantha.
So, yeah, so website updates, were you able to do anything on that?
We updated the members. That happened.
Saw that. I just looked, I was like, yay.
Yay! So we're current. I think that maybe. So I started to draft a press release for our street tree stuff, and I was like, "What is the point of this?" It was in September. Like, what's the goal here? And I think actually, in listening to what we're doing now, maybe the answer is that we want people to reach out to us if they want to be on that list.
I think we should definitely do a press release. I think
Yeah. So that's
out there doing yard work or as you put your gardens to bed or blah, 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 whatever, like little charming kind of thing. But I think it's totally relevant. And then, we say it's a member or a couple of members from the Conservation Commission will reach out to you, or we may stop by and take a point
Yeah.
to see exactly where the trees, I think it would be great because then it helps channel our energy
Oh, yeah.
even more to
Yep.
to populate the places that are of most interest. And then while we happen to be in said neighborhood, we put a few others on with the right.
So you're
for
thinking a press
possibility.
release like in the Penn Bay Pilot or the Villager or something?
Whatever thing is.
Yeah, I was drafting it to the Villager, but it was sort of
A generic one.
generic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we just need to make sure people understand it's just the village area that we're talking about, not
I
Oh,
only,
I know,
yeah,
I
I
know.
said Camden.
O'Care Ave or, like way out.
Well,
in the-
I guess it's safe to say with a little bit of wiggle room but if you live on or adjacent to the village community, think on the sidewalk or just, or something along those lines. It's kind of gives you I'm thinking of a visual framework for somebody because
Mhm.
I live outside the village,
Right.
I'm off the sidewalk. I'm just, outside time, but
Well, there's also
6
zoning
doors
areas,
down.
right?
yeah.
Like
But
the
who's going to
village.
go to the map for
I
that?
think it's,
I'm just trying to
places that
think of
have
a-
sidewalks or could conceivably, have sidewalks. It hasn't been a huge problem
Right.
I
yet.
mean, I think most people on
The idea is to benefit,
far end of 52 or
Walkers.
whatever are going to be like, they don't mean me. I live here, but I have my own trees kind of
Right, have a
it'd be nice to have a
forest
tree.
in my backyard.
Yeah, I think most people will
Point-
intuitively get it.
Point taken.
I-
That's a next.
Yeah, no, it's a good question.
I do think something should be said though, a little bit like in the,
In the village area or the side.
Yeah, I'm also just including language that's like if you have questions or you want
I
more
can work
information.
with you on the press release.
Yeah, but yeah,
Help you out.
Yeah,
but I would do one sooner than later. Because it gives us more time to do this kind
Yeah,
of,
do the recon.
yeah,
Yeah.
prep.
yeah. And I was able to find information. What is this? The Camden Street Tree Shade Program on the what is this? The Camden Garden Club website, but I couldn't find is there another place where there's here's who qualifies, here's for example, this website says you have to pay for it, $75.
Well, that's because that was the garden club, which is a totally different program. Because you could get a reduced rate tree from the garden club and then you could put it in your backyard, front yard,
Well,
side
Edie
yard.
wrote some-
It's confusing because it's called the Camden Shade Tree Program.
Yeah.
it's very confusing because, that was the entirety of it before. And it was we planted 6 trees a year with that program, and the town would pay a third, the garden club would pay a third, and the homeowner would pay a third. And so what we've done, and for years there was a hesitancy to having a new program because maybe it would step on the gardens club toes, but that turned out to be, they were fine with it, and that was.
Okay.
So the way we differentiate now is this is for tree, the town program is for trees in the public
Trees in
right
the
of way.
public
And, you know, in the, you know, with emphasis on locations that, that, you know, in the walkable
That, right,
area.
provide pedestrian
You know,
and
within walking
vehicular
distance of
shading,
downtown, like.
you know, privacy and habitat enhancement of, you know, residential and commercial properties. It,
Especially things that like, you know,
Yes.
where the public is in the right of way, a lot of the time walking. And
yeah,
then the garden club is like, their program is a great option for somebody that wants to plant a tree in, you know, their front yard that's not in the public. It's not going to be a public tree. It's going to
So it'd be
belong
like
to
on their
them.
private property. Yeah.
right. And then they
Because-
pay a portion of it, and the garden club is supporting that effort because it's encouraging, you know, climate action and habitat value and trees and blah, blah, blah. You know, like it's
Yeah. Is it
greening Camden, et cetera.
called, is it also called the Camden Shade Tree Program?
This is this, I don't know what it's the shade tree program.
It's
is-
unfortunate
was
that
the-
theirs is called that because
And
it's,
this program
Ours
that
is.
we've been engaged in is the street to tree program, which is, you know,
it's also called the shade tree thing because that is what it's supposed to be.
but.
I don't know if we can get the garden
What should
club.
I call it?
That's
do we want to call it?
That's a good question.
Street trees.
I could call it Street Tree instead.
Yeah.
Just-
Because, I mean, Street Tree USA, I mean, that's maybe we're Street Tree.
And then, you know,
Shade
a lot of
tree
this is our shade tree
Between
ordinance.
shall
but-
meet.
Yeah,
But they are different.
Edie wrote some nice stuff. Have you read any of it? Like she wrote
About,
about the street tree program and get your tree, and I'll see if I'll dig around.
I
and see
don't
if-
know, I did, yeah, I mean, so I did some
Or I can. email her.
reconnaissance online and was poking around to try to find
She
information. I
wrote a,
think,
like little brochure thing.
And then Samantha wrote, we've had this weaved into a lot of things. There was the Arbor Day press release, had a lot of it.
Yeah, I
That's
think
what
there's,
I-
gonna say, I think there's enough material out there that it can be politely copied, pasted,
Yeah. Cannibalized.
fused, and,
yeah,
with
Just
a
don't link
nice
to the garden club.
contact.
right,
You know,
right, okay.
Dave
Go to the
add
Camden
or
Can
input or
meetings,
whatever.
And it
yeah.
seems like they talk about the similar things. BD's always there.
Mm.
You know, you might check their website, their newsletters and stuff.
Who's?
They send out newsletters. I'm not sure they have a
Camden
website.
Can.
Climate
Climate
Action
Now.
Network
Yeah.
now, Climate Action now, there we go.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Um,
I mean, it's mostly written and there's a lot of plug and play, but I also didn't want to like junk it up with stuff that's already been said so that people like don't actually read it.
I also think we haven't said anything in a while about the
Yeah.
street tree program.
Yeah, I don't think so
we didn't
either.
do- I don't think we did
Yeah.
any outreach or any press release this year specifically. I think we had some people that knew that we were involved in some way, shape, you know, kind of word of mouthed it. And it worked out and we got our trees planted. So,
There were notices put in the town office window that.
oh, perfect.
got a
Okay.
lot
So
of
that,
people's attention.
and so again, so all the sort of the littler things met the brief, but I do think just for
Yeah,
getting it out there
You can
is a
make
good
even a
idea.
little map like they had for, people that they signed a pledge that they wouldn't use.
Oh, the green lawns or the
Yeah.
green, yeah.
There's
Similar
that
thing to that map. and if you want-
brochure that Molly and Kathleen.
Yep.
were-
which was actually, it was very helpful. Yeah.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Um,
And we don't have a date for planting yeah, I guess we're done for the year.
No more planting.
We'll
All the
just
trees are in.
Prepare for spring. Cool. Okay, thank
Yep.
you.
And then, I just put print materials or outreach opportunities. Was there anything kind of on the horizon that you were aware of? You know, we've had that school group that, when, was it you, Brian, and somebody else and Pam or somebody attended at I'm just trying to think, is there anything on the horizon that we might want to participate in? I know we couldn't participate in the native plant thing this year because of
Right.
people's schedules and, we don't have to solve or put anything on the calendar, so to speak, today, but
Right.
just to kind of plant the seed that maybe
Uh-huh.
at the December, January meeting, as we kind of come into the new year, like dates or events or opportunities to, I don't think the Sea Fair's going to necessarily happen. And,
No.
I think there's a few
it's
things
not
that are
gonna
moving.
happen.
So are there other ways and places that we
Well,
wanna do
I
some
mean,
outreach?
yeah. And, like I'm working with the Camden Regional Middle School on some marine. In fact, I'm going there right after this meeting because they want to put some saltwater tanks in
Nice.
some of the classrooms. But that's not really what we do, but it still could be all connected to the greater good, right?
Yep, yep.
And then like with Louisa and the
Pollinator programs.
parties and all that stuff. I mean, there's all kinds of opportunities to educate.
Well, certainly if there's a pollinator party again at Crest, it would be a nice way for one or more of us to fold in and, say we were represented there and
Yeah, I think
help
so.
out and,
Yeah,
yeah,
so
so,
the kids get familiarized with what people in
the role of,
active volunteers in this community do
Yep.
and how they get engaged in the overall betterment of the ecosystem, right?
Mhm.
So, because the kids love that stuff,
oh, yeah.
especially
the
if it
pollinator
involves
parties are a
dirt
real
and
hit.
water and,
The grosser the better.
what's that?
The grosser the better.
Yeah, the grocery.
More hands-on, let's say.
I have an 8-year-old. I feel like I can say
Yeah.
that.
Gravitate to puddles and mud, which is great.
Yeah.
Anything else that anybody wants to bring to the meeting?
When we get your situation right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say, so, but not leaving it as last specifically, but just making sure we cover other things. Yeah, I have too many moving parts in my world, and I don't feel like I've really done the best job in the chair role in the last year. And I think that the best way for me to continue to serve is to take, whether it's self-pressure or just the responsibility of the role or, et cetera. We've had to move meetings around. We've had to, do a number of things. I'm getting the agendas in at 7:00 at night on the day before, which for me personally, professionally is less than ideal. It's not the way I prefer to do things. And I don't think, and that's not how I was doing things when I started, and I had a different rhythm to my life. So I think the best way for me to continue to serve going forward for at least the next 6-7 months of my term and then decide what I need to do from there is to just be a member at large.
Well, just FYI, you and I have worked together a lot on all kinds of stuff, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I'm aware of how busy you are. And so I think whatever you've done has been terrific, even though I'm sure you feel like you could have done more. But I mean, I know how busy you are and all the stuff going on in your life. And I mean, these volunteer opportunities are terrific, but they are demanding, right? If you do them right. So,
And they can be pretty thankless.
yeah.
I've not had any moment of like, oh, I wish Rebecca would do more. Just like to clarify.
No, I don't feel
I know
any
it's like
specific pressure coming in. There's a lot of, self-pressure, but I also feel
Yeah,
for myself that
You're a very
I've had a
conscientious
lot of
person.
moving parts in the last year,
Yeah.
professionally and personally, and I just, by the time I can get my head fully back in the game or be present, like when we were doing the tree planting, like I was literally all in the hole in the truck moving around, like I'm all in, but I do not want to be the person who is sending out agendas at the last minute. I do not want to be that's not how I prefer to operate. I do not want to be the person who is feeling like they're bringing a mediocrity, to the table. I prefer to be. I would prefer to do it.
mediocrity, Rebecca.
Well,
You're being
it just
hard on
feels,
yourself.
well, I probably, yeah, that's, I guess, how I roll. But I definitely don't feel like I've been wearing this hat, this role in the best possible way. So I think like it would
You've been great. You're giving somebody else an opportunity to step up and do the work, which is very kind of you. But you've been you've gotten a lot done, and I've seen a lot of committees and a lot of chair people that were not as on the ball as you. And I think the credibility that your professional background brings to the position far outweighs the
Amen.
agenda stuff. But that said, it is good sometimes to get somebody else in order for you to be able to contribute, I think, the most of your professional knowledge to somebody. Some people love the organizing part of it, and I would never ever be chair of one of these committees because I too do not want to be in charge of setting out an agenda. But
Well,
I
I
think we're
don't
really
mind running
grateful
a
you've done it.
meeting. I don't mind running. I mean, in general, I feel like I feel proud of, being part of the regrouping, the rebooting of the Conservation Commission, if you will. And to carry the torch forward from a lot of really good work in the past. But and I think, but for me right now, I feel like I would be the most impactful and the least crazy in my own head about it if I could we have these ongoing projects and I could just call Sam up and be like, hey, you want to go plant 4 trees next week? He's got some ready for us. And Brian and I already did the work. If I could just have that
Right.
little bit of calm, or when I can just bring it in and, Steve, let's go look at drainage holes on next Saturday.
Just go do something. There's a beginning
As
and an end
opposed
and
to, when I feel like when I know I can give the bandwidth or I have
Right.
the time, I can look out a couple weeks and be like, oh, you know what? I'm going to go.
I noticed on my way out, they were cleaning these
They
holes
are.
on
Hey.
Mount Batty Street. I said, oh, we had a project we were going to do over there.
Yeah.
Did we do it?
No, they got to it first.
Yeah.
So that's sort of where I feel like I need to just kind of not do anything, but just do it differently. So
That's fair.
Yeah.
Thank you for your work.
being honest. So
Maybe you should send out an email to the whole group, just reinforcing that, and saying, that means somebody else has to.
Yeah, right.
Just so it can't be lost, because I feel like what'll happen is oh yeah, Rebecca said she kind of couldn't do this anymore, and then
So we'll just pretend we didn't hear it.
Is it possible?
that's what I do when people try to resign from things that I don't. Oh, I didn't get that message.
That's weird. Yeah, I don't remember.
I think what she did was
Oh.
offer to resign, but
You can't pass the baton because nobody wants to grab it. So.
Barb isn't
I've
here.
had people in that position. I won't name names. I won't name places. I won't name places. But I've known people who honestly have reached a place of fatigue or kind of a place, and they are gracious, but it's kind of an uncomfortable spot to
Yeah.
witness when no one else will do it, and they're just kind of stuck.
Stuck, yeah.
I don't want to be in a stuck position either, not because I think any of you are intending, but I've seen it kind of just
oh yeah, that's definitely a
right.
possibility.
It's right.
That's why I said write the email and be and put the subject line
maybe
really
you should
clear.
Remind people. Yeah. So again, I am, I'm going to hang around at least until June. I, may come back and continue to serve at large. It's time to just acknowledge that I need to shake things up a little bit and shift some of my headspace and prior. So
Did you say hang around until June?
my term is up in June.
Oh,
so I said,
I was gonna
but
say
I'm
December,
the chair. I would like to just run the next meeting, finish the calendar year. And that gives.
Oh, the calendar year, nice touch there. That
Yeah.
like it's all planned.
I like to have things,
Is that the Gregorian calendar or the, what
It's the
calendar
Calendar
is
of the
it?
fiscal calendar.
That
Oh,
never ends. It just keeps going.
All right, we definitely need to adjourn this meeting.
When you just a question.
Yes.
When you send that, do you mind, or maybe this is somewhere that we can all go find it ourselves, but in the interest of clarifying, is there a place where it's here's what the role is, here's what's expected, here's the time commitment?
Like a
I
job
believe that there is something somewhere that says the committee guidelines about what it means to be.
Janice just emailed that all to us again.
Yeah,
But I don't know that it goes into detail about the role of the
For the
chair.
chair, though, specifically?
Not really. There's nothing written.
it sets the agenda and
Runs the meeting, makes sure things are start and end on time, ensures that there's a quorum so that there's, things that are voted on or done that are, otherwise it's an unofficial meeting, et cetera. So,
some of that can be defined by the committee. A lot of the time the chair would be the spokesperson for the committee if needed, but that's not.
Is the chair upholding something? Like when we talk about, oh, we need to make sure there's a quorum, like I assume that's written down in some sort of.
Anybody would have a lot of help. It's rare that, that only matters when, the thing is, the Conservation Commission unfortunately doesn't have any real power. And so any votes that we would take would be unlikely to be challenged in court. So.
That's a good thing.
Do we even have a mission
Thanks,
statement?
Allison. Thanks for the pep talk.
the name municipal.
No, I feel real good about it.
I'm just saying, it's most of the time we're trying to provide recommendations to
Yeah.
the select board. And a completely divided recommendation from the Conservation Commission where it came down to a 3-4 vote may not be helpful anyway. So,
Right.
most of the time your job is to try to reach some form of consensus or near consensus about on a recommendation for the select board. And, keeping track of who's been at meetings. And ideally we would get into more of a role at some point where there'd be some formal reviews, like the Harbor Committee, which does, is written into the ordinance as needing to vote to recommend certain applications to oftentimes the planning board. And so that would be great if we could get there, but we're not in that point where people usually need to know what the vote was.
To circle back on what you were saying, or we're asking Steve, is, so the main municipal, or main association of conservation commissions, sort of statewide defines, and that is that we are committed to connecting communities to each other, to the water, woods, and wildlife of our beautiful state. The role of conservation commissions is to advise, to educate, and to organize around these issues. So we are not a regulatory entity, as you knew, as you knew, but rather we are looking within our own community structure as to which is what we advised with the peers. We've educated at the native plant group,
Yep.
and we've educated at other outreach events that I'm not thinking about at the moment, the Seafair, and et cetera. We're continuing to organize largely amongst ourselves to advocate and assist with efforts like the street tree planting and the stormwater management and other locally led higher priority conservation concerns. Hopefully that's clear as mud.
It's whatever we want it to be.
Yeah.
River group.
We have had some engagement, like participating in some of their stuff, but we haven't had like a formal sort of partnership or specialized project.
But you really should.
I know there's opportunity there.
This
I
group
think
should weigh in
I
and
think
follow
the
that.
invasives around the watershed and the river would be an easy,
Yeah, we mapped the
bridge
town,
and
right?
stuff, but it's just one of those things,
Mapped all the town.
something along those
sites
lines,
of invasives, put it into the,
or letters of support for upcoming.
Really, you
projects
should be reviewing sort of the general premise of different proposals and,
Have we got
weighing
any,
in.
signs up having to do with the watershed yet?
Oh, that's a great question. Jesus, where have you been for the last hour? I'm just kidding. We know where you were. We need to,
Yeah,
yes, we
and
need
those-
to ask Dave. I'll just
No,
text him.
that's
Do you know?
definitely not Dave. That's me, because it was all done wrong. And
Oh, no.
it was done
The signs were done
like
wrong?
nobody was thinking, except for me apparently, that they were actually going to go on the boundaries of the watershed. And
Oh,
they all say entering. So we have a few locations. but I just haven't given it to the Public Works Department. But I think that some of the members were thinking that they were going to go like in more like your signs that say you are in the McGonagall watershed in sort of high traffic visibility locations.
Mhm.
But those don't correspond to the boundaries of the watershed in most cases. And
Do they-
entering, the terminology entering
It
is,
literally, so
How
the
many
signs are
signs are there?
printed and they say entering?
they do say entering.
Oh.
But I was gonna take 6, there are 12.
Oh, okay, so it's not like a.
And really they should go like in other towns too. But
Yeah.
a few could, I think it would be possible just to take stickers over the part that says entering and say, something like either taking the name of a stream that's within the watershed, or you could say,
Okay.
you are in the McGonagall watershed, if people want them to be in some of those locations that are
How many signs were made?
12.
Do you have any idea, like, if you went to other towns that are in the watershed, how many points you would need those signs at? If Camden's got enough to already, and they've already been bought,
Yeah,
would
like
think
just put
they'd
the ones
say,
that are
"Sure, put
entering
'em
in
up."
those spots.
I did
and
go
then-
to the Lincolnville Lakes and Ponds Committee meeting, and I showed the signs there, and they were like, oh, that's great. A lot of it's state roads. I do think that that would be a good use of the sign of, personally, I think it would be better to do what you're saying and to actually take 12 signs and ask for them to be put up in
The
whatever
points of-
town,
yeah,
you know,
exactly.
the place like along, where water starts draining into Levenseller Pond and in
That's
Searsmont
Lincolnville,
and,
Searsmont,
you know,
Searsmont, yeah.
on the top of Moody Mountain Road in Lincolnville, where the watershed, one direction goes this way and one goes that way.
If the town say,
So
okay,
why-
we
yeah, I was
could
gonna
do
say,
like the
so
tree
why
planting
not?
thing. We
Like-
could go out and plant the signs, say, good neighbor thing, Camden bought the signs, put them up for you.
I
It's more inclusive in what the actual.
And I know
watershed
Dave
is.
will take the 6 signs and put them up whenever with whomever.
because I mean, I can find 12 locations that work for that, but it's kind of forcing it into,
Oh, I think
Like-
we've got goodwill. I feel,
Yeah.
fi-
Well,
I
if they
feel
wanna
like
put 'em,
if
let
we
'em
have
put 'em up.
6-ish or whatever, or we know exactly where we can put them within our own
Mhm.
border, the crossing, if we're entering, we can deal with phase 2 of you are in.
yeah, so
or blah,
let's,
blah,
we'll
blah.
go ahead and I'll give
Then
them the 6
let's-
locations and then,
Let's find maybe the 6
Or
best
4,
or
maybe
most
4 that are
likely
really
or
good.
4. Yeah, and I'm definitely, yeah, I mean.
that would be a
I'd-
great thing for
like,
them. We
why
can
not? That's
have
great
people go and-
goodwill to like just call out or reach out to the
Yeah.
whatever towns. And I mean, 1 or 2 signs in a town, like I think we could.
In the past, they've said, oh, well, you can't, the state doesn't give you permission.
I can
But
get
I
permission
know,
from
I know
DOT.
Dave feels like he can deal with that issue just perfectly fine. And if we can say they've already got, it'll be helpful to say they've already gone up in Camden, here they are. Good suggestion.
Yeah, no, let's.
So
again,
that'll
that's
be
like
my
another
accountability
project
item for
To
next
cross the
time.
finish line.
Connecting with, is it?
Not
with
connecting,
Dave?
like, you'll like, the next time we have a meeting, you'll see some signs up in Camden and then we can talk about,
Okay,
not like
Do
I'll
you-
report back that I connected with somebody to talk more, like, because I know that I am what's holding that up.
do you need like people to help? Is that
Yeah.
part of this?
Need help, let us.
No,
know.
they can put, the Public Works will put
Public
the
Works can
signs
do it?
up,
Okay.
but it was me feeling initially like nervous about wanting everybody to decide, and anyway, it's what needs to happen is just to say, let's put the ones up that we can identify on this entering thing, rather than getting into trying to modify the wording.
Yeah, let's.
On
it's
each of
12,
them.
let's-
If we want different signs, I know there was talk also about getting signs for the, which I still really would like to do, maybe double-sided, that name the different
Streams.
tributaries of, so when you're crossing over, you'll see like, oh,
But first, we need to
Carl
get
Brook.
these 12 signs up.
right, exactly. So let's,
Perfect.
Well, if the town will put up 6 and we got, what'd you say, 12? I mean, you say the other towns, you know, we got the signs
No.
and
Oh,
we
yeah,
got
they'll make it.
volunteers that'll put them up if you don't want to put them up.
mhm.
And we know where we want to put them up.
Well, they have to be put up.
And the
in a
Watershed
certain
Association
location.
might like to be, I showed the signs to the Watershed
Yeah.
Association also, and they, they obviously like them, so
Yeah.
Okay.
just get these up in Camden, and the agenda for next time can be like
Ooh, I know, I feel like a
photos
whole
of
different.
the signs in Camden and next steps.
Yes. And
Did we figure out what to do, like what best next steps would be for the Patricia Pendleton seat on the commission? Do you know?
I'm going to reach back out again.
I know that you have done it multiple times. Just
I think there's two approaches: is to let it sort of let her term expire,
yeah.
or
We really should just be leaving her on the email list, though, because it's not really totally giving her a chance if,
But you've emailed her several times.
I have.
So she has been.
I only got
emailed
one
several times.
response.
but she should get the emails that say like what the
Yeah.
agenda is, and,
Okay.
I think at this point it's so just it
and
doesn't pop up in my
yeah, just try
not in
to
my thing. That's
Yeah.
odd.
add her to the one that says that you're not going to be chair anymore.
Cool. Maybe she'll step up.
She's great, and I just honestly keep forgetting when I see her
No, I do,
sometimes,
yeah.
and I forget to mention it to her when I see her. She's really busy.
Oh yeah, there's
she's
not-
lovely.
It's not a
If we could get
no
her,
credit, it's just a-
Neutral information seeking question. That's what
yeah,
that was.
absolutely, absolutely.
but let's try just throwing her at least on all the emails and.
I assume we're not going to be touring the sewer system.
No,
Yeah,
that
all that stuff.
requires some Dave coordination and input. I do think that will happen. It will hopefully he'll come to the next meeting and then we'll know, we can get that on the agenda. But yes, it will happen.
Okay, I just,
For sure. I think it'll be great.
And then Steve, did you miss the conversation about the going out with Kendall and that was,
out with what?
Yes.
so there's right now in town, Badger is here cleaning out the storm
On
drains.
my way out.
And so Kendall from,
We're going to measure the depth at the bottom of the,
yeah, so Kendall, one of the Public Works employees and also a wastewater employee, has been going out following that truck around and inputting it into an app. I think you said that you
we're going to
probably,
measure it after it's clean so they know where the bottom is.
no, they're going to do it before too.
Okay.
But we can go out, what the discussion was going out and tagging along with the Public Works crew to learn about what they are doing and learning about, I know you maybe aren't going to be doing the app part of it, but you might, and the action item out of this is that Dave said that the company's going to be here for like a few more weeks and that it would be great if anybody from the Conservation Commission wanted to go along, and we're going to find out like the actual timing of those opportunities.
Well,
And
I'd be
can you
happy to
get
do it, but
text?
The app part of it, I'm useless.
Mhm.
That's okay. We need generally a two-person team
Okay.
sort of thing. So boots on the ground and understanding the process and the goals and the priorities and all of that is,
Well, I think I understand it because we did a similar thing at the
yeah.
park.
Mm.
Yep. So,
It's when we
Um,
knew when to pump, we had to every fall go around and measure the solids in the tanks. And when it got up to a certain level, we'd call them to pump it out.
Oh,
that sounds like the similar process.
that sounds more like a
That's,
Well,
it
it's
is,
a septic
but
thing,
it's still the
This is probably
same.
gravel and stuff
principle,
at the
but-
bottom. It's a similar thing. You
Mhm.
gotta have something,
probe.
we would just tie a big old towel on a
Okay.
stick and stick it down there, and wherever the top was, we could measure how
Yeah.
deep it was. So I assume it's a similar thing. It's just,
Yeah,
It's probably
just
just
no
gravel and
toilet
stuff.
water. We're
Yeah.
mostly not toilet water in our.
Not interested in doing
Yeah, like sign me out of that one. All right. Well, I feel like it's a productive meeting despite the last minute agenda and all of the other things that happened. And I appreciate the being here and to Sam or Samantha, sorry, who was
I'm
on
offended.
earlier and what she's going to do to continue the stormwater stuff to get us up to speed and things all set there. So I will send an email out in the next few days or so regarding my transition from chair to at-large, and also to set some, or suggest some dates and times. I've got a lot of fluidity over the next few months. I mean, I certainly have things that will come up or things I have to get done, but these few months ahead will be a little bit more flexible. And if we continue to have, I mean, I don't even mind if it's cold, but clear and accessible weather to get out and do trees and
So
stormwater.
are we
then I
back
think we
to the
can-
next meeting is the third
Or
week,
the first
first
Wednesday,
First Wednesday of
12.
December.
12:30 to 2:30.
That's December 4th, if it helps.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, we had to switch to the first Wednesday
All
for
right.
somebody else's schedule at some point, and that has stuck for
That's all
a
right.
year or so.
So it is going to be the first Wednesday.
Yeah, it was, we had a couple of swinging dates because there's too many people who weren't going to be able to attend due to travel and other work obligations. Okay, so I'm officially going to call this meeting adjourned at 2:14 in the afternoon unless otherwise engaged.
Second the motion.
All in favor? See you next month.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.